All right, who knows anything about Daniel? Anybody would like to venture and say something about Daniel? Without looking at your thing that you know something about Daniel?
We continued on to the
Pardon? Daniel was in the lion's den, okay?
There's a lot of my Bible, God is judge.
That his name means God is judge. What else about Daniel?
We continued to the first year of the reign of Cyrus.
Okay.
He was one of the princes kept by Nebuchadnezzar.
He was one of the elites, set apart by good old, the guy that wanted to turn everybody's house into a dungeon. Yeah, by that guy. Daniel, he is the prophet during the exile.
He came up with the Daniel diet.
There's the Daniel diet that you couldn't handle, right? You said you were ready to pass out. I think I would be too. There was something else I wanted to say about it. That's all right. Anyway, let's take a look at it. The book of Daniel has 12 chapters. Oh, it's complementary book.
Revelation.
Revelation, the book of Revelation. Exactly. He is the prophet of the exile. He's taken captive with all the other children of Israel taken as a slave. Daniel means God is judge. He is a historical figure. And the reason we say he is a historical figure, the others in the Bible are also. We're just pointing out that he is mentioned elsewhere in the Bible. If we go to, let's go backwards here, Jeremiah 29:1. Jeremiah said, the elders which were carried away captives to the priests and to the prophets, to all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar carried away captive from Jerusalem to Babylon. So he's one of them, but he's not mentioned there by name. Let's go to Ezra. Ezra. Ezra, come on, let's get there. Ezra 5:1. Ezra there is there to rebuild the temple. Prophets that were sent back, Prophet Haggai, Prophet Zacharias. I don't know why I have had. What does EX mean? Example? As historical figures? Maybe that's what I meant. In Ezekiel, let's go to Ezekiel. Let's go there. What the three prophets are mentioned there. I guess the example was Haggai and Zechariah. They're also historical figures. Ezekiel 14. This is mentioned 2 or 3 times. I got listed as 3 times. Verse 14 and 20. Noah, Daniel, and Job. Verse 20. Noah, Daniel, and Job. Ezekiel 28, verse 3. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. Nothing that can be hid from me. So he's listed then in the Bible other places showing that he is and did exist and lived, that this is not some kind of fake. It states that Jesus states that he was a prophet, Matthew 24. Matthew 24, verse 15. Okay, the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. And so that would be the signs of Christ's coming back. By the way, Matthew 24 lines up with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is Revelation chapter 6. That Revelation chapter 6, the entire chapter, beginning to end, begins with the Great Tribulation and ends with the Great Tribulation, the Battle of Armageddon. And it is the complete book of Revelation, first time through, in describing the Great Tribulation. All right. States that he is the author of the book. Daniel 7. Daniel spake and said, Daniel 8, even unto me, Daniel, speaking in, what would you call that? First person, if you're an English teacher, what's that called? When you are speaking of yourself?
First person.
First person.
Oh.
Is that what it's called, the first person? Okay, Daniel 9:2. Where the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah. Oh, I, Daniel, understood. He's talking in the first person there. Daniel 10:2. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. And I think maybe this is part of the place where an angel is trying to get to him. Michael. The prince in verse 13, Persia, Michael, the chief princes, and he tried to get there, and he was being held up by a devil. All right. He prophesies in the king's court. Ezekiel prophesies to the common people, the everyday people. Daniel is in the king's court. So he has, who has access to the king's court here in the United States? No, he is the king's court. Who has access to that? Obviously, the president's there. We'll call him the king. Huh? No, but what prophet? The typical one, he's dead. What's his name?
Graham?
Billy Graham. And so what would be replacing him? No, he doesn't go there. It would be Billy Graham's son, what Franklin Graham. But I haven't heard of Franklin Graham going there. Anybody heard of Franklin Graham going there?
What the Jesuits wrote there.
I would say the Catholics are in their faith. Yeah,
They run the show.
they're running the show. By the way, what group is happy about the election? They had it on the news.
Catholics.
The Methodists, they're just tickled pink. The Methodists are. Probably the Episcopalians are just tickled pink.
For the woke stuff.
Yeah, for all the woke business. Yeah, it came out, it was the Methodists. Folks, this is nothing new. They've been pushing this stuff for years. When we were in the Presbyterian Church, they were pushing all this stuff back then. All this nonsense with queers and all these people wanting them to preach and women preaching and queer. It's been going on a long time. We're talking 40 years ago, 45 years ago. None of this stuff is new. None of this is new. All right, the era of the book is given from the captivity to the return. Daniel 1:1. If we get there, Daniel 1:1. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. So that date that I have written in my Bible is 586 BC. So these dates are, historically, those things can be figured out. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, chapter 7, verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream. So who is Belshazzar to Nebuchadnezzar? Now, I could be wrong on this.
His son.
Sometimes they call him a son, but then what is he? I'm not saying this is a fact, but sometimes they'll call him a son, but it could be a grandson. Sometimes they call the grandson a son. So without checking into that, the idea here, it tells the era of the book. Nebuchadnezzar's gone by then. And so you have Belshazzar is there. By the way, what makes him a devil? What makes Belshazzar a devil?
Misusing the cups.
No, his name. Bel. That's a name for the devil. What do they call in the spelling? What do they call then a woman? In the one Beauty and the Beast, what do they call her? What's her name? Her name is Belle. How do they spell that? B-E-L-L-E. All right? It's B-E-L-L-E, like a southern belle. That's a different word and a different definition. But B-E-L is a name for the devil. If it's incorporated in the name, that's a demonic name. 9:8:1. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar. So the time is given, chapter 9, verse 1. In the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. All right, so now Darius is king. Chapter 10, verse 1. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, the thing was revealed unto Daniel. So it goes all the way through, including Cyrus. By the way, who predicts Cyrus will be king and will reconstruct the temple? He'll do that. What book does that? Predicts that, and he predicts it 175 years in the future. Pardon? No, I think it's Isaiah, the book of Isaiah. It's predicted. Daniel 5:3. Let's go there. By the way, what's the traditional, what is the, it's not revealed here in the book of Daniel, what is the traditional means of the overthrow of Babylon? How did they get in there and take it over?
They drained the swamp.
They stopped the river flow through there, and I think they blocked it up.
Yeah.
Then they went under the gates where the river went in. And then how many days did it take traditionally for them to take over the city? The king didn't know it. They didn't know what was going on. I thought like 3 days. It's a little bit of a while. Now, why wouldn't that happen, or can't that happen here? Today, in today's book. Well, the king didn't know about it. Traditionally, the king doesn't know about it. Huh? Technology. Everybody's got their cell phone going. The call would come in right away. In this climate, who would be the last to know? Paul's got that. Who's the last to know? I'd be the last to know.
I saw him point at you. He gave it up.
I'd be the last to know. All right, chapter 5, verse 31. Chapter 5, verse 31. And Darius, the
Yeah, but you can't get out of
Midian,
it.
took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So he's 62 years old. Right. By the way, the handwriting on the wall came down, and Belshazzar was killed that night. Boom. It was toast. Too much, too little, too late. When the handwriting came down. All right, Daniel 6, verse 28. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. If you do right, if you just do right, God will honor that. He honored that. And all of those things, and you say, well, only Daniel's mentioned. Well, others that did right, all that's going to pay off. All will pay off. If you do wrong, it may pay off, but just for a little while. Otherwise, you'll have an eternity to think about it. All right, Daniel 9. We already looked at 9:1 and 10:1, the captivity and the return. He lives in Babylon from 605 to 536. To at least that, so how many years is that? 64, 69 years. And how old was he when he was taken captive?
40.
All right, Sonny says 40.
20.
I say he was 15, 17. So let's say you're right. Let's say it's 20. We'll compromise. Let's say he's 20-year-old. He's a young guy.
He was a prince, so it'd be younger, you're right.
So 605, so that's 64, 69 years, and add 20 years onto that, 89, he lived there 89 years. I mean, that's a good long while. 89 years. What's the average span of a man today? What's his lifespan?
70.
Is it 70 or is it over 70 now?
It's probably 76 or something.
Oh, you think it's that old for a man? Then what's a woman? 78, it's only 2 years difference? Theirs is coming down to,
Yeah, some guys said, I thought it was higher than 70.
a man.
Yeah.
Yeah, higher than 70, but the gap is closing. Why is the gap closing? Why are women dying younger? Not that they're not dying older. It's because of the stress and working and women's lib. It's women's lib. And we never called it women's lib. What did we call it? No? We didn't, I never called it women's lib. I called it women's lib. That's not real popular. But it's, all right, it's written in the Hebrew and Aramaic languages. Chapters 1 and chapter 8 through 12 is in Hebrew, and chapters 2 through 7 in Aramaic. To show that, you would have to get one of those Bibles that would have that in there, written like that. He was of royal descent, Daniel 1:3. Go back to Daniel 1:3. And 1:3, and the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seat and of the princes. So he was related to the king of Israel and also would have been marked as a prince. One of the two. He was of royal descent. And he was verse 12, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Was Daniel a vegetarian?
Yeah. Well, that is, well,
You say he was.
primarily.
Primarily. Now it's either yay or nay.
You're allowed to eat,
It's a yay or a
the
nay.
Levites were allowed to eat the meat.
Now I've changed this in here. I've added this. Originally I have in here Daniel was a vegetarian. You want a pulse? Whatever pulse is.
Chili and beans. Chili and
But he was not a vegetarian. How can you prove that he was not a vegetarian? What was a Jew permitted to eat? Or what was a Jew not permitted to eat?
pork.
You can't eat a pig.
You eat cow.
And why could you not?
Lamb.
Say that again?
Eat a lamb.
So he could eat a lamb,
Sacrificial food.
but what had to happen to the cow? What happened to a goat, a lamb?
It had to be bled.
You have to bleed it. It has to be bled meat.
Right.
Making it, what do Jews call it? It has to be what? What's the K word?
Kosher.
Kosher. So we assume that Daniel ate meat if it was kosher, if it was according to the law. But Nebuchadnezzar wasn't serving that up. He liked his steaks medium rare. And he didn't care if it was ever bled out. Right? They would, you're not to eat the blood. So that had to be bled out. When rabbits, we would bleed out rabbits. Rabbits are all white meat. There's no dark meat in rabbits. We would eat rabbits by the hundreds. And it's all dark meat. White meat. If you actually struck a rabbit on the back of its head to kill it, what would happen to that meat where it got hit? It would get bruised and blood would be in there. It would then not be white. It would be bruised and bloody. And you couldn't get rid of that out of the meat. We would eat it anyway. We're not under the law. But it's all white meat. But we would always slit their throats and let them bleed out. And they're always still alive. And then how is it then, how, if they're still alive, then how is it bled out? How does the blood get out?
Hang them upside down.
We hang them upside down, exactly. We string them up, legs spread out, ready to, what we call casing. We case them and then gut them. But how does the blood come out? And not gravity. Heart? They're still alive. You slit their throats, the heart's still pumping. The heart pumps all the blood out. And that's how you get the blood out. All right, he was not a vegetarian. Now, it doesn't matter. You can argue that. It's not really going to change anything. He honored, Daniel honored God, and so God honored Daniel. Daniel honored God, and God honored Daniel. Give me another one where they did right and God took care of him and put him in position. What was his Old Testament prophet? A main one. Joseph. Even though he went to jail, he was. It all was for the good. All was for the good. Because he honored God. All right, Daniel 1:8. Let's go ahead and we'll read that verse. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. All right, so he wasn't going to be a drunk. Therefore, he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. So he's devoted to the Lord, devoted to the word of the Lord, and to the service of the Lord. He's devoted. Now, what I've added to this would be in Leviticus 11, Leviticus 17, and Exodus 34. I don't feel led to go there. It would be everything that was done according to the law. Then I have Daniel 6 in there, 16 and 20, and that. What would that story have been? By Daniel 6.
Fire furnace?
No, that's before that.
Oh, the lion thing.
I would say the lion's den. And so he's devoted to the Lord in what way? How does he devote himself to the Lord?
Prayer.
Through prayer. He's not going to stop praying. And the spies purposely set it up that way to catch him in prayer. And he was supported, Daniel was supported by the king, but the king sealed it with a seal, this decree that you were not permitted to pray. And Daniel disobeyed that because he's devoted to the Lord. All right. By the way, the wine in which he drank, he would not drink the wine. Why? What is the wine that they're drinking then in the Bible? We would say it is called new. What's called in the Bible? It's called new wine. It's grape juice. It's not fermented. It just flies in the face of other verses. Wine's a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. And so we had one lady here who was married to a drunk, her first husband, and he would get the DTs. And has anybody ever been around somebody that has had the DTs? Nobody? When they arrest these people, now I've been over at Bedford Heights, I don't know if the jail is still operating. They have a drunk tank over there. And how do you know how they restrain them? They restrain them in bucket seats. You put them in a bucket seat right out of the car, and you strap them down, and they go nuts. And they have the DTs, they have withdrawals. Now this would be from alcohol. So now, well, what else do they get withdrawals from today? Drugs, heroin, cocaine. They're getting withdrawals from that. And then they see Walt Disney does that with the elephants. Da, 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 da. And the elephants are dancing around, the bubbles are going, and they're flying and all. And then who is it Mickey Mouse as the wizard? It's somebody what that is and what they're seeing are they have the DTs. And we actually preach that they may be actually seeing the devils on the other side. And when Walt Disney, he depicts that in the cartoons. There's a lot of stuff in cartoons and in books. So they get the DT. So anyway, wine's a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. It's ruined many a person. So, oh, well, anyway, we had what she was married to a guy, had the DTs. He died. She married another one. The second husband was a drunk. And she wanted help from the priest. Help me. You know, it's never wrong to go and ask the pastor for help. So she went to the priest. She was Catholic at the time. And she told me the story. She went to the priest. She lived on this side of the bridge, walks across this bridge to go to St. Mary's to talk to the priest about her drunken husband. And it just ruins the house. It just does. So she ends up talking to him. She was so mad. She couldn't drive there. She was unable to drive. So she, you know, this is a long time ago. So she hooked it. And from her house to there is a good mile to 2 miles. After talking to the priest, she was so mad because she said that the priest, well, what was he? He's a drunk. And so she came back to me and said, well, why would I ask him for advice? He's just as much a drunk as my husband. And she was really mad because the answer that the priest gave was, well, what are you going to do? He's going to drink. And he wasn't about to help her at all. She ends up walking home. And anyway, that's what's going on, folks. And then behind the scenes, if you want to know what goes on behind that, not with all these priests, but with a lot of them, they're molesting the children. And that's what's going on. And they make the headlines on the papers. All right, Isaiah 39. Isaiah 39. Isaiah 39, 5 and 7. Then said Isaiah to Hezekiah, hear the word of the Lord of hosts. We'll read through verse 7. Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house, and that which thy fathers have laid up in store until this day shall be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. And of thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. In other words, this is predicted. This is in 712 BC, so this is about 105 years later. 105 years later. So name off some, that is what's being predicted. What is being predicted for, what's being prophesied for the church today that hasn't been fulfilled yet? The rapture? Well, that's the Ezekiel temple. We're out of here. Church is gone. What before the rapture? What's coming? No. Great falling away. What will the church be filled with? Tares, leaven, and birds. That's what's coming if it's not already here, etc., etc. And all you have to do is just go visit someplace else. You'll get some shockers. Hopefully, we won't have shockers here. But here it is fulfilled. 2 Kings, go there, chapter 20. through 19. That time, it's what they show him. All the way through. Let's pick it up in verse 14. Isaiah 20, we'll pick it up in verse 14. Then came Isaiah the prophet unto King Hezekiah said unto him, What said these men? And from whence came they unto thee? And Hezekiah said, They are come from a far country, even from Babylon. And he said, What have they seen in thy house? Hezekiah answered, All the things that are in my house have they seen. There's nothing among my treasures that I have not showed them. And Isaiah said unto Hezekiah, Hear the word of the Lord. Behold, the days come that all that is in house and that which thy fathers have laid up in store unto this day shall be carried into Babylon. Nothing shall be left save the Lord. On and on it goes. And of thy sons that shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away, and shall be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Then said Hezekiah unto Isaiah, Good is the word of the Lord which thou hast spoken. He said, Is it not good in peace and truth in my, if peace and truth be in my days? And Hezekiah's interested in his own story rear end, his own story high. That he's going to be spared all this, but his kids and all the rest of them are slated for doomsday. And by the way, Hezekiah was a good king. Was a good king. And we'll stop here. We'll pick this up here in number 16. The book of Daniel was probably written near the end of his life. Near the end. We'll start here next week. Preaching in 15.